Last week on the show, we had Glam Media CEO Samir Arora, one of Silicon Valley's most successful entrepreneurs. And he acknowledged that really to succeed as an entrepreneur, it's all very well being a genius and innovative and creative and all the rest of it. But the key thing is to be able to execute. Today we have an expert on entrepreneurial execution, Jeff Harris, a very seasoned VC, who has written a book called Transformative Entrepreneurs, a book which tells us how to succeed, how to execute as entrepreneurs. Jeff, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
So Jeff, we have a large audience of startup entrepreneurs, people eager to understand how to succeed. What are you telling people that we haven't heard before?
Well, I can't speak to what you haven't heard before. My experience has been that having a good idea is a necessary but not sufficient condition for success. When you look back at some of the best entrepreneurs over the years, and really going back even 100 years, what you notice is they had tremendous perseverance. All of them faced incredible obstacles in getting their ideas to market, but they were able to find ways to take advantage of whatever resources they could find, and were able to execute, to use the phrase you mentioned before, to get to their goal. And without having those execution skills, the idea alone was rarely sufficient to lead to success.
Jeff, the examples you use in the book as successful entrepreneurs who persevered with an idea include Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, Muhammad Yunus, and Hugh Hefner. What distinguishes these kind of guys from people who fail? Is it simply a belief in their own ideas, even when no one else is believing them?
It's incredible how hard it is for people to appreciate the difficulties in getting a business off the ground and growing it to scale. There's just so many obstacles that they have to overcome, so many resources that they need to pull together. And there are people with some very good ideas, but they don't know how to take them forward. They are unable to marshal the resources, whether those are people resources or financial resources, and bring them to bear. So I think that when you look at companies that fail, it's mostly because they lack the leadership that were resourceful enough to get through the obstacles.
You started at Warburg Pincus in 1983 as a venture capitalist. You've obviously invested in many companies, many startups. Did you also always invest in people rather than ideas?
Always started with the people. It's interesting. We would get a business plan, and all that was really relevant to me was to appreciate the kernel of the idea behind it and the type of people that were behind it. And I never really focused that much on things like financial projections or market studies or things like that, because it comes back to the ability of the individuals to adapt to the world around them. What we know is that that world will change. It will be very different often than what they write in the pages of that business plan. So the key to me has always been the people. Other venture capitalists take a different approach, and they've have had great success with different approaches, but for me it was always the people.
I don't think you're that unusual. We had Ron Conway, the very well-known Silicon Valley angel investor, on the show a couple of years ago. He admitted that he only invests in people, and he said that he feels that entrepreneurs are born rather than made. So he made it clear he would always invest in an idea from a Mark Zuckerberg or a Sean Parker. I assume you would agree with Conway that successful entrepreneurs are born and not made?
I think that to a large degree they have to have internal to their own wiring an ability to have an understanding of where they want to go and the courage to go after that. And I don't think you can teach that. I do think you can help along the way. You can help people not make mistakes. You can give them education so that they don't make mistakes, in part by looking at the mistakes of others who haven't succeeded, or even those that have succeeded but recognize that they had to make mid-course corrections. So I don't think it's so black and white to say that they are born, not made. I think that clearly there are pieces that you have to have just in your internal makeup successful, but in order to be also, you need to be aware and educated as to the opportunities and challenges.
What did Walt Disney and Steve Jobs have in common? On my show, we've had a number of Jobs experts, including Walter Isaacson, who wrote the very successful biography of Jobs. He's obviously he was a remarkable man, driven, an enormous faith in himself. Do Jobs and Disney share a lot? Because I know Jobs had a great deal of respect for Disney and for his company.
I think that Steve Jobs had tremendous respect for Disney. And part of that goes to a sense that I think they both had about the creative side. As you know, the Disney company, even going way back into the 1920s and 30s, was all about creativity. The second thing that they both had in common was this tremendous attention to detail. In both cases, they were infatuated with just the most minute aspects of whatever their product might be. And they both had a great need to be in control. If you read about Walt Disney and what he did and how he did it, there was no doubt that the big decisions and the little decisions about all of their films, the theme parks, things like that, Walt Disney was intimately involved with. He was not successful because he was a great delegator. He was successful because he had great vision, a sense of creativity, a willingness to take a lot of risk, and then paid tremendous attention to all the details that are required to actually have that success.
Jeff, in the post-Steve Jobs environment, who do you see most likely to seize his mantle? Would it be somebody like Jack Dorsey, who many people speak very highly of in the Valley?
I don't know Mr. Dorsey, so I can't speak to that. I don't think that one should focus on how you replace a Steve Jobs. He's a unique individual. He was a unique individual to be able to pull off the things that he did. I think that, when you look at Steve Jobs and his career, the early days in the creation of Apple Computer, his time in the wilderness, and then coming back, to me, there was a big difference. When he came back, I think he appreciated that product innovation alone would not lead to sustainable success for his company. And he moved to creating platforms that had distinctiveness, that would provide competitive advantage. So he became a pretty good strategist as well, and then obviously was able to execute on that. I think that there are others that have a lot of that makeup, but when you think about how Steve Jobs was able to alter the music business, not only did he have the strategy, he had the charisma and the connections and the star power to be able to get the music publishing companies to play together, which is not something that historically they'd ever been able or willing to do. So there was a certain force of personality as well. So that combination, I don't think we see very often. And I don't know that we should expect to see it again in Silicon Valley or elsewhere anytime soon.
Jeff, not everyone, of course, can be either Steve Jobs or Walt Disney. Your book has been very well reviewed. Forbes, for example, thought very highly of it. There are going to be a lot of people in the audience with some entrepreneurial talents, some element of the Jobs skill set, but of course, there is no other Steve Jobs. Why should they read your book? What are you telling entrepreneurs that they don't already know?
I think if they read the book, they will come away with an appreciation for the things that they're going to have to encounter and work their way through, but also the inspiration that indeed it's doable. In fact, it's important that they do it. It's important to the society. It's important to standard of living, not just in the United States, but elsewhere. I think that they will be motivated after they read the book, recognizing that the challenge that they have ahead of them is not an easy one. And there are many examples. It's very popular today to focus on Steve Jobs. But you can look at people like Fred Smith at Federal Express or Howard Schultz at Starbucks, to name a few that are a bit of a high profile today, and what they were able to accomplish having nothing to do with technology, but just interesting concept, great charisma, attractive management styles, and a willingness to keep going even when it was pretty clear to everybody else that they weren't going to succeed. And I think people who read the book will understand those stories and be inspired by them. So hopefully they won't quit, because it's easy to quit, as you know.
Well, I don't know. I never quit. Well, I'm a failed entrepreneur as well. Jeff, the founder of TechCrunch, Mike Arrington, has remarked several times that he set up TechCrunch as an appreciation of entrepreneurs. He refers to them as heroes. Many other people in the technology space do so too. Are entrepreneurs the equivalent of the warriors of the Middle Ages? Are they the most heroic individuals in our society?
I think that we have done a tremendous disservice to ourselves by not appreciating the importance of the entrepreneur, whether they succeed or whether they fail. Without entrepreneurial activity, we all lose. And so in my mind, they are heroes. And the courage that it takes to step forth and try and create a business is something we should be applauding, as opposed to giving a lot of airtime to movie stars and athletes who, while they do contribute something to society, perhaps, entrepreneurs contribute a huge amount to society, and they deserve a lot more attention than we give them.
Well, Jeff, I think you deserve a lot of attention for writing Transformative Entrepreneurs, both as a guide for people who want to become successful and as a testament to men like Disney and Jobs and Eunice. What did you most learn, finally, from your book? What did you learn that, as a VC, you didn't already know?
Oh, I learned an awful lot. It was a great experience to pull together the material, to write the book, and to, for at least a limited time, to become engrossed in the lives of these people and the things that they had to overcome. And so when you read through the book and you see that the obstacles that they had to get over were ones that, for many people, they never would have gotten over it, but these individuals, they had that something special. And so for me, getting immersed in that was tremendously inspiring on its own accord.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV. I hope that you have great success with the book. I think it's an important book, and I strongly encourage anyone who still doesn't really understand what it means to be an entrepreneur to look at Jeff Harris's Transformative Entrepreneurs, which is just out. Thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV.
Well, thank you for having me.